Good morning, Mr. Nakib. We are from Group B. Me and my group members Manjula, Sharon, Kuna, and Amita will be presenting our educational psychology test. To Erickson's lifespan development theory, there are 8 stages a person will go through, and everyone's journey is different. So, in the first stage, we can see that Ali was showered with love, and this is the reason he has learned to trust his parents, because they have given him the basic needs of survival, such as love and a happy home. His parents is sensitive to Ali's needs, which made him see the world as a safe place for him. And the second stage, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Ali explored the world with his parents' permission. They did not restrict him when it came to making friends. His parents has given Ali to learn that he can control his actions to get results. In this stage, Ali's main task is to resolve the issue of autonomy versus shame and doubt. For example, Ali might build a sense of autonomy by making friends that are good for him. And the third stage, initiative versus guilt. So in this stage, we can see Ali getting permission by his parents to explore the world. By learning to plan and achieve goals while interacting with others, Ali will get to fulfill this task. Initiative, a sense of ambition and responsibility appears when Ali is given responsibility to explore within his limits. Ali will then develop his self-confidence and sense of purpose. And the fourth stage, which is industry versus inferiority. In this stage, it is important for Ali to develop self-confidence. But in Ali's case, he struggled with school. He realized that he couldn't catch up on his lessons. Even trying hard, he still couldn't understand. Ali received very little help from his parents because they did not know what to do, which made him get into a lot of trouble. This made Ali doubt his abilities, and he developed a sense of competence with feelings of failure and inferiority. And the next stage, which is identity versus role confusion. Ali faced the task of identity versus role confusion. In the beginning, he was quite confused of his role and did a lot of bad things that brought a lot of problems. Ali thought what he was doing was right. Ali was apathetic and did not make a conscious search for his identity, so he developed a weak sense of self-confidence and experienced role confusion. But in the end, he found his identity after his teacher approached him. His teacher told him to refer to a psychiatrist, and he was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD. After receiving the proper encouragement, he stated that he had feelings of independence and made considerable improvements in his learning and graduated school. The next one is intimacy versus isolation stage. So Ali did not find any trouble in sharing his life with someone. Ali got married and started a family, and you can see that Ali was successful in resolving the conflict of the intimacy versus isolation stage. The next stage is generativity versus stagnation. So in this stage, adults enter a time known as adulthood. Generativity involves finding your life's work and contributing the development of others through activities. Ali spent a few years exploring what he wanted to do. He spent a lot of time doing several odd jobs, and then he committed himself into the culinary arts as he could see that he was good in cooking. At first, he worked as a busboy in his uncle's restaurant, but then as time went by, he worked harder and took several courses in culinary skills. In the end, he became the head chef in his uncle's restaurant. And the last one is integrity versus despair. After all his accomplishments, Ali began to reflect on his life's work and felt a sense of satisfaction and pride. We can see that Ali is happy with the life that he has gone through.
Good day. Today I'm going to present about the analyzation of the case using Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which might be possessed in Ali's case. Okay, the first one is Ali was diagnosed with both dyslexia and ADHD. So, I have found out two multiple intelligences that might be possessed to Ali. Firstly is the visual spatial intelligences. Visual spatial intelligences is defined as the visually artistic people whom are known to demonstrate spatial intelligence. Okay, these abilities visual spatial intelligence is defined as the visually artistic people whom are known to demonstrate spatial intelligence. Okay, these abilities include manipulating images, graphic skills, and spatial reasoning, anything that would include more than two dimensions. Okay, in Ali's case, we can see that he took up the culinary arts course. Culinary arts is what? It is an artistic job where the food is presented, served, and cooked in a beautiful way. Okay, so this intelligence might be possessed to Ali. Next is the bodily kinesthetic intelligence, where we can see that bodily kinesthetic. Okay, next is the bodily kinesthetic intelligence, which is the ability to manipulate both the body and objects with a keen sense of timing, is known as bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Okay, these people are able to accurately manipulate objects due to a strong mind-body union. This can be demonstrated in the form of physical skills, for example, athletes and dancers, or in precision and steady movement, such as surgeons and craftspeople. Okay, as in Ali's case, it is crystallized that he might had possessed the bodily kinesthetic intelligence, where we can see that that he took up the culinary course. Someone who is a daydreamer, they are very good in artistic things and so on. So in Ali's case, we see that he might have possessed this intelligence, as we all know that he is gifted when it comes to cooking, where whatever he cooks get met with compliments, which motivated him to further on this culinary arts course. And later on, he took up on to learn. So this has been clearly seen when Ali took up on several courses related to culinary arts, and also he learned about the ins and outs of the kitchen. So these are all intelligences of Gardner's theory would be helpful for both whom are having dyslexia and also ADHD. Okay, so moreover, both parents and teachers have to play the main role to help the children with such a disorder. Lastly, it is important for both teachers and parents to actually get to know the early symptoms of these disorders and be prepared with the aid which helps them to overcome these disorders. So thank you. That's all from me.
Good morning to Mr. Nakib. So now I'll be presenting about question 3, where we'll have to devise a plan to help Ali in his learning using the social constructivist approach. So we have started off answering our question by defining what is constructivism. So constructivism here refers to an approach to learning that holds people actively to construct or make their own knowledge, and that reality is determined by the experience of the learner. It is a vital theory used by the teachers to assist the students. Whereas social constructivist approach here emphasize the social of learning, an idea that knowledge is mutually built and constructed. Social constructivist approach basically highlights that teachers and peers as joint contributors to students' learning, where in this case we can actually say that Ali's friend can be a good peer by helping his friend to develop his learning. So there are 4 main tools, or can be said as approaches, which can help Ali to develop his learning. So the 4 approaches are scaffolding, cognitive apprenticeship, tutoring, and cooperative learning. Scaffolding can be the first approach that I can use in planning Ali's learning. Scaffolding means a technique of changing the level of support during teaching session. Ali has been diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD, and this has made him to struggle a lot when it comes to learning. So by scaffolding, the distance between Ali's current knowledge and what he does not know can be bridged with the guidance of mine as a good peer. Cognitive apprenticeship is a vital approach that needs to be added in the planning of Ali's learning. Cognitive apprenticeship means the technique which supports a novice understanding of a culture's skill. This approach will help Ali to learn the cognitive processes that experts use to handle complex tasks through guided experience.
Hello, I'm Amirta. I will be talking about tutoring. So, tutoring includes a range of approaches in where learners learn to work in pairs or small groups to provide each other with an explicit learning support. So, the first thing would be a cross-age tutoring where the tutor is someone older and the tutee is a younger person. So, like arrange like an adult and a child will be having a session. And then the next part is peer assisted learning. So it's a very structured approach. For example, you can use it for mathematics or you can use it for reading. For example, maybe in a week they will have like 3 sessions with like 20 to 30 minutes of reading for the students. And lastly is reciprocal peer tutoring. So it's where learners try to alternate between the role of the tutor and the tutee. Okay, so the next part is cooperative learning. So cooperative learning is a structured method of combining classroom-based education with practical work experience. So a cooperative education experience is commonly known as co-op. So it provides academic credit for structured job experience. So there are few techniques that I will share. So today we will be talking about think, pair, share, jigsaw, reciprocal teaching, and the Williams. There are more, but I'll be speaking about this. Okay, so the first one is Think, Pair, Share. So Think, Pair, Share is originally formed by Frank T. Lyman during the 1981, and Think, Pair, Share allows students to contemplate a posed question or problem silently. So the students may write down their thoughts and just simply brainstorm in their head. So when prompted, the students pair up with their peer and discuss about his or her idea, and they listen to their partner's idea. So following pair dialogue, the teacher solicits response from the whole group. And next is jigsaw. So students are members of 2 groups, home group and expert group. So in the heterogeneous home group, students are each assigned to pick a different topic, and once the topic has been identified, they will leave the home group and group with other students with their assigned topic. So in the new group, students learn the material together before returning to their actual home group. So once back in their home group, each student is accountable for teaching his or her assigned topic. Okay.
Greetings, I'm Sharon Shelley Sakresh and I'm going to present question number 4, where I need to relate Ali's case to Bandura's social cognitive theory. Bandura's social cognitive theory is learning occurs in a social context with a dynamic and reciprocal interaction of the person, environment, and behavior. We can say that Ali performed well in sports and made friends because of his parents. As quoted, Ali was born into a middle-class family who showered him with love. Growing up, he was always encouraged by his parents to explore the world and to not feel restricted when it comes to making friends. It is clearly shown to us that Ali had good motivation because of his parents' sportiveness, and for sure, he had a stable mental state. So when someone's behavior is positive towards others, it would create a conducive environment for them. Ali's situation totally changed once he started to attend school, as he could not catch up on his lessons as quickly as his friends. He started to feel frustrated because of it, as every time he tried to give his full to learn and interact, he ended up failing. Here, Ali failed to give attention unknowingly. He got distracted as he did not understand the teaching and it affected the learning process and the quality of his works. This agitated Ali and he would start to lose focus on his lessons is an evidence of Ali's days in schools. As Albert Bandura stated, in addition to observation, attention is one of the necessary steps in learning. That is why Ali's parents could not help him too. As quoted, his parents were worried but did not know how to help him. Every time Ali got detention or ended up at the principal's office, sure the parents would have known that there is something wrong with Ali. But here they just observed without giving attention to learn his real problem, and that is why they could not find a way to help him. Ali went through the same situation even at his secondary school. In fact, it became worse that he started to skip his classes with his like-minded peers. Again, Ali's behavior was affected by the environment and his cognitive as well because he fell down of his performance in education. This can be related to observational learning as Ali witnessed and observed a behavior conducted by others, as I said before, his like-minded peers, and then reproduced those actions like skipping lessons, skipping classes. Reinforcements can be self-initiated or in the environment. After finding out that Ali has dyslexia and ADHD, Puan Hani used proper tools and methods to initiate teaching and learning process and brought improvement in Ali. Here, the reinforcement is in the environment, who is Puan Hani, that falls under environmental factors. Ali started to explore his skills, which is behavioral factor, after school by working in several jobs. He self-initiated the reinforcement this time to continue his behavior that he achieved in the school successfully. He made this step to gain knowledge, which can be related to cognitive factors, with the expectation, which is also cognitive factors, of learning what his real work field is. After being aware of his culinary skills, Ali decided to deepen his knowledge and skills, especially when he was motivated, self-efficacy, with compliments, environmental factors, every time his dishes turned out well. To improve his skills, Ali worked at his uncle's restaurant merely as a busboy and progressed slowly to learn the ins and outs. He even took up on courses to become a successful chef. He who did not give up on his skills despite knowing that he has dyslexia and ADHD can be related to behavioral factors for the reason that he practiced his skills with self-efficacy. So in overall, one's behavioral, environmental and cognitive factors could affect them both positively and negatively. Early life of Ali was pleasant as all these factors in his life were in his favor. Things started to change when he stepped into his school life, for we know that he matured and could see the changes education-wise. All the three factors were not in his favor now and his life turned depressing for him. Once he figured out the actual issue, his life changed again. So this is how environment, cognitive and behavior factors affect each other. That is all from me. Thank you.